Otzdarva has a vendetta against me, and he wants to go to war. First, he made a video explaining how to completely counter when a Bubba slams his chainsaw into a locker that a survivor's in, where he shows the exact timing you need to jump out of there unharmed and get away. He did this knowing darn well that I played a lot of Basement Bubba, and those locker grabs were my bread and butter. Now Otzdarva has the audacity to make a video dissing on NOED, when he knows it's my favorite perk in the entire game, and I even have it tattooed on my body. I see how it is, Otz. You want to play ball? I'm game. If you couldn't tell, that was a joke. Otzdarva making these videos had nothing to do with me at all. He just made them because they are very educational and great learning tools for people who watch his videos. But he makes a lot of videos like that, and he spends an extensive amount of time, learning the game and combing through things very thoroughly to make sure that he can get the best information to people so that they can learn and improve, and I think that's awesome. In this video that sort of revolves around NOED, Otzdarva's main point is essentially that people use NOED, among other things, as a crutch, and it sort of holds them back from becoming a better player. I'll let you hear what he says in the intro just so that I'm not, putting words in his mouth.
I feel like there are many players in a similar situation where they are trapped in a prison of their own making, and they don't ever get to improve. They play the strongest killers, sometimes with the best add-ons, sometimes with massive slowdown perks right on top of each other, and or NOED on top. And these are things that will win you games if survivors just don't play super good. And you don't really need to improve or do anything. Basically, you put one or all of these things onto your build and hope that survivors make a mistake or don't play efficiently, and then you win some of your games. And maybe you're in a MMR bracket that you don't quite belong to just yet. And is there any issue with this? Shouldn't they play the game the way they want? Absolutely. But if you're interested in actually learning and actually getting better at your killer and your overall ability to control the game and know what you're doing, this kind of strategy I don't think is going to help you very much.
So yeah, my understanding is that he's saying when you use NOED and you use all these slowdowns stacked on each other and the most overpowered add-ons, etc., you are sort of holding yourself back and relying too much on those as opposed to learning the killers themselves and how to, maybe pressure the map or pressure gens. Just the playstyle and the killer themselves, you're holding yourself back from learning that because you're relying too hard on the perks or the add-ons. He also does say, and I think it's very important, that if you use any of these things, that it's perfectly fine and everybody can play how they want. Obviously, that's how I feel about the game. Everybody should be able to do and play however they want, use whatever they want. But I think this video is more geared towards the people who actually want to learn and become a very, high caliber skilled player that doesn't need all of these things in order to win games. I just wanted to make a video from the perspective of somebody who does use NOED almost every match. I love the perk, and I'm somebody who doesn't strive to be the most skilled player in the game, and obviously Otzdarva is somebody who tries to be the best player that he can be, the most skilled player. He tries to learn every little thing about every killer, which is very respectable, and there's obviously that's awesome. But I also think it's fine to not want to grind your ass off to be perfect with every killer or perfect on every map, and if you want to play a bit more, if you want to rely on perks, that's fine too, which obviously Otzdarva said that too. I'm not saying, none of this has to do with me saying that Otzdarva is saying it's not okay, because he did say it's okay. And none of this is really aimed at Otzdarva. It's more so just talking to you guys from somebody who uses NOED, and just so you can get my perspective. And I'm sure there's a lot of you who can relate to it. NOED for me is essentially a stress reliever. It's a safety net. I guess it takes the edge off, if you will. In my opinion, playing killer can be rather stressful. You have a lot to juggle and worry about, and a lot that you have to think about, and obviously you don't have a team or anything. You're just one person that has to worry about 4 other players and pressuring an entire map and pressuring certain generators. There's a lot to think about, and for me, having that extra safety net that I know I'm not using now but will come in handy later, just in case I get completely destroyed or in case maybe I make a couple mistakes that cost me the match, I have a chance to make something happen. Basically, I know that it's not over. Now, I'm sure some of you, especially Survivor players, are going to say, well, that's unfair. You shouldn't, get to just instantly down people or have this crutch where now you can just win the game if the survivors are reckless, all because you played badly in the first part of the match. Now, my biggest rebuttal to that argument is simply dead hard. I actually made a video essay about NOED a little while back where I also make the comparison from NOED to dead hard. And I use video comparison and I go a little bit more in depth. So if you want to check that out, you certainly can. But just think about it. What does dead hard do in most cases? It bails you out. It makes you feel safe. You can play far more reckless. I think dead hard is a perfect shining example of people that rely on a perk to help bail them out and give them confidence so that they know that if they make mistakes, it can be made up for throughout the match. Dead hard to me is essentially NOED, but just way better. And I want to just say for the record, I use dead hard as survivor. I think it's the best perk in the game. There's a reason that 99% of survivors use this damn perk. It's because it's so good. But people use dead hard for the same reason people use NOED. You don't use dead hard because you're an optimal top tier skilled player. No, because if you were that, you wouldn't use dead hard, right? You'd be able to loop without it. You'd be able to mind game without it. But dead hard is your safety net. Dead hard's there in case you make a mistake. Dead hard's there so you can play greedier and you can easily, create more distance when you've lost distance, either to playing greedy or if a killer outplays you at a loop and say they moonwalk and then they close distance on you and they'll get a hit. You can easily just create that distance again. Even though the killer outplayed you, you get to bail yourself out there with dead hard. That's why people use it, because it's so fucking good. I think it's pretty common sense that dead hard is way better than NOED, but in case you disagree, I'll explain to you why I think that. First of all, every single survivor can have it, and in a lot of cases, if you're at high MMR, all survivors do have dead hard. In my games, I would say usually at least 3 out of 4 survivors have dead hard. Not only is it common for 3 to 4 survivors in a match to run dead hard, but you can also use it multiple times per match. And say you're a killer, right, who doesn't like to tunnel or camp, you want to go for 12 hooks. That means that you have to initiate 3 chases with each survivor. That means that survivor can use dead hard 3 times. That means that you have to deal with 12 dead hards throughout the entire match. How often do survivors have to deal with NOED? Just at the end. And even when they do have to deal with it, they can get rid of it, right? You can cleanse it, you can bust the totem. Very often in my games, my NOED gets cleansed after I get a down or 2. So I still get value, but often it does get cleansed before I can wipe out a team or anything. Dead hard, you can't cleanse, right? You can't cleanse dead hard. There's some perks that create the exhausted status effect, but a lot of them are very easy to play around. I guess my main point with this, right, is when you think of what is the most used perk in Dead by Daylight, I think most people, even survivors, would agree that the most used perk is Dead Hard. And I'm sure a lot of these survivors who use Dead Hard probably complain that NOED is unfair or rewards bad play, but I just think it's super ironic because Dead Hard does the same thing. And that's why I use both, because I understand that. I understand that NOED can bail me out, just as I understand Dead Hard bails me out. And there's other perks as Survivor that bail you out. There's obviously other perks as Killer that bail you out. A lot of slowdown perks that bail you out. There's plenty of exhaustion perks that bail you out. You know what? If you want to become a skilled player and really understand the game, just don't use perks, because you're gonna rely on them, right? They're gonna carry you in some sense or another. In my opinion, what it all comes down to is this game doesn't require a whole lot of skill to win. When I say a whole lot, I don't think it requires much at all. I think it really comes down to RNG, your loadout, and experience. Let's be honest, how many times have you felt like you were the most skilled player in the match and you still died, or you felt like you were a very good killer? You made all the right plays, but it didn't matter because the survivors had Dead Hard DS, borrowed time, adrenaline. I just don't think you can outskill perks in this game. You just can't. And unless everybody's going to run the bare minimum and not run meta, which just isn't going to happen because people are competitive and they want to win. People are competitive by nature, right? So they're going to want to win. They're going to want to escape or get a 4K. Maybe they want to increase their MMR, so they're going to do what it takes. And, I feel like obviously if you're going to handicap yourself, you can do it as a challenge. Maybe you feel more rewarded. But I think at the end of the day, you might be becoming a better player, but it's not really, I don't know that it's going to help you win your games more so than it would if you just use the most busted shit. I think we just need to remind ourselves that it's perfectly okay to not be a skilled player. It's perfectly fine to not be a top percent comp player. If you want to win your games by using, crutch perks, using slowdowns, using NOED, using dead hard, using DS, unbreakable borrowed time, using whatever, don't feel bad. Don't let other players say, wow, you get some skill, man. Why don't you have no skill and you play Dead by Daylight and you won and you didn't deserve that because you have no skill. If you're somebody who constantly wants to improve as a player so that you don't need to use these perks and you can have the best chance of winning without having to use the best perks and add-ons, I respect the hell out of that, because that, in a game like this, that takes a lot of dedication, and I do respect that. And if you're somebody who just wants to chill, who wants to work smarter, not harder, as they say, and you just want to slap on all the BS you can, and you just want to walk through your matches without any issues, or maybe just to feel less stressed out, that's awesome too. There's no shame in using NOED, and there's no shame in wanting to become a better player. Nobody's in the wrong here. Let me know your thoughts down below. I might do another debate night soon, just because I like having these conversations. I think it is fun to get different sides, different perspectives, and just rationally talk about things. And yeah, lastly, I'm just gonna leave you with this.
Say it.
I use NOED.
You use NOED and what?
I'm trash?
No. Proud.
I use NOED and I'm proud.
Good. Say it louder.
I use NOED and I'm proud.
Louder.
I use NOED and I'm proud.
Louder.
I use NOED and I'm proud.